There's another method that we can use to solve a quadratic function that's called completing the square. This is sometimes useful when we have irrational roots or roots that end in decimals. And so if we take a look at this example, if we were going to try and solve by setting to 0 and factoring, we get x squared minus 10x plus 18 is equal to 0. Well, my factors of 18 are going to be 1 and 18. That doesn't get me to negative 10. 2 and 9 is not going to get me to 10. 3 and 6, that's not going to get me to the negative 10. So it's not easily factorable. However, if I look at my discriminant for AC, I would end up with a negative 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 18. So I have 100 minus, 4 times 18 minus 72 is going to give me a positive number. So therefore, I know that there's going to be 2 actual roots. However, when I first look at this side and just the ax squared plus bx plus c side of it, I notice that my number here is a perfect square because that's 5 squared. Well, when I factor then, I see that I can get x squared minus 5 and x squared minus 5, and we're still setting that equal to 7. Well, these two can be rewritten as x minus 5 squared is equal to 7. Now, all I need to do is take the square root of each side, and so I am left with x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 7. Now I can solve for my 2 roots. I have x minus 5 is equal to the positive square root of 7, and when I add 5 to each side and plug it into my calculator, I'm going to get that x is equal to about 7.6, and when x minus 5 equals to the negative square root of 7, and then I add 5 to each side, I'm going to find that x is equal to approximately 2.4. Let's look at the pattern on this. Remember that we have, let's say we have x plus 6 squared. That is going to give us, when we FOIL it, x plus 6 times x plus 6, which is going to give us an x squared, plus 2 times the 6x plus the 6 squared. And if we take a look at what's going on here, we'll notice that we're basically doubling the number here. And so what we're talking about is when we complete the square, to be able to find our C value, 2 times 6 is going to be 12. And so if we square 12 divided by 2, that's going to give us the same thing as our 6 squared. So let's kind of take a look at how this works. Let's say we have x squared plus 6x. Okay? Well, I need to find out what my C value is going to be. Okay? So let's stop and think about it. If I divide 6 by 2, because I had doubled it to get this middle value, that's going to give me 3. And if I square my 3, that gives me 9. Now, that means that I can rewrite x squared plus 6x plus 9 into 2 factors of x plus 3 times x plus 3, which means I can then rewrite it as x plus 3 squared. So let's take a look at how this works. We've got x squared minus 14x plus 3 is equal to negative 10. Well, I can easily isolate just my x squared and my ax by subtracting 3 to each side, which is going to give me x squared minus 14x is equal to negative 13. Well, I want to get it so that I can complete the square. So I'm going to divide by 2, which is going to give me a 7. If I square my 7, that's going to give me a 49. So that means that I can rewrite and say x squared minus 14x plus 49. Now, remember back to the algebra, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So if I have a negative 13, I now need to add 49. So when I simplify it, I can rewrite now as x minus 7 times x minus 7 is equal to 36. So that means that x minus 7 squared is equal to 36. Well, when I take the square root of both sides, I'm left with x minus 7 is equal to a plus or minus 6. So I'm going to have x minus 7 is equal to positive 6, and x minus 7 is equal to negative 6. And now I can solve for my x values. If I add 7 to each side, I'm left with x is equal to 13. Add 7 to each side, and I find that x is equal to 1. Therefore, my two roots are going to be at 13 and 1. So basically, the rules to complete the square, there's going to be a couple steps. If you have an equation that is just in the form of x squared plus bx, you just have these two terms of binomials, then the step number 1 is going to be divide b by 2. Step 2 is going to square your answer from step 1. And then the third step is going to be to add your square number to the equation. So let's look at this example again. X squared minus 12x plus c. Well, right now I just have my binomial of that x squared plus a bx, right? And I want to find what is going to make this a perfect square. Okay, so step 1 was to divide my b by 2. So 12 divided by 2 is going to give me 6. Step 2 was to square my answer to 1. So I'm going to have 6 squared, which is going to give me 36. And then step 3 was to add it to the equation. So x squared minus 12x plus 36, which I can rewrite now as x minus 6 squared. Make sure you have the steps written down in the notes. This is a sometimes can be a kind of confusing thing to do, but don't worry. We're going to do a lot of examples and practice in class tomorrow. I just want you to have the steps written down so that we can hit the ground running with the practicing part where I can answer questions.